European American children. Social and cultural description. There's a strong presence to adopt to the predominant culture when these children integrate into the school system. The issue of communication. Some groups speak English sufficiently well. There are others who learn English as a way to communicate in school, but also at home you have parents who teach and prefer that the child speaks their home language. So you have children who become bilingual and are able to speak fluently in their home language and as well as English. Families differ based on economic and cultural differences. Some hold on to traditional boy-girl roles, and it's just all going to vary depending on where they came from. European American children. Unique challenges confronting European American children. Now, part of these challenges exist simply for being a child, so they're going to be different. They're going to be very similar characteristics in all races during these developmental stages. So a lot of these challenges are not unique just to European American, but more unique to just being a child in general. Children may feel ignored or powerless to gain attention. Children learning English as a second language may have both social and academic problems in school. Children may have difficulty with the usually greater freedom allowed to the girls in the United States. So children coming from cultures where they didn't have predominantly girl-boy roles, or where the boy was a predominant character, may have difficulty transitioning into the United States, where girls are allowed this greater freedom. They also may experience a decline in self-esteem because of being in a majority culture. There are certain cultural expectations that come along with that. European adolescents. The age group for adolescents is considered from 15 to 19. Social and cultural description of this is common developmental characters include making friendship, dealing with peer pressures, moving away from immediate family, and being able to transition toward economic independence. Again, as with children, some of those characteristics are just unique to being an adolescent, and the European American adolescent is also going to experience this. Communication plays a significant role in socialization. Adolescents are encouraged to increase proficiency in English communication. So you move from a child where the child was encouraged to also maintain the home language. Now there's a pressure there for the child to be proficient in English, even if that means that the home language they're not as proficient in. Families conflict between expectations and traditions is a very common characteristic in European American families during this adolescent stage. You've got children, you've got the parents who have certain expectations of the child and certain traditions, but yet and still you have this teenager who may want to do their own thing. Differing values held by parents and adolescents, because the parents still had that traditional rearing, possibly. Then you have a gap between the values that exist for the child and about the values that exist towards the parents. So that's something that families deal with typically during this age. European American adolescents, unique challenges confronting them, problems resulting from the conflict over tradition versus the majority cultural beliefs. So you've got conflicts brewing from that. Peer pressure to engage in social functions not approved by parents. So again, as we keep saying, a lot of these challenges are going to be not specifically unique to European Americans, but the age group is going to be really important, what adolescents are experiencing. And you may have that pressure from other children, feeling that pressure from outsiders to deviate from some of those traditional roles, which do not gain approval from the parents. Communication problems stemming from poor English are forced bilingualism. Remember, communication is a really important part of socialization in this age group. So when the child is not able to become proficient in English or is having difficulties because they cannot communicate well, that is something that the counselor may have to work towards addressing that issue. And finally, pregnancies in unwed adolescent mothers. In the European American category, 11.1% of births were to teenagers. So that is a growing challenge in that area. Elderly, the European American elderly. Counselors must learn about individual European American elderly to provide effective counseling intervention. So one unique part about the European American elderly is that the counselor may need to know a little bit more information about those 53 groups, or be able to be more specific about those groups. Communication. Elderly that have not mastered English may experience the most communication difficulty. Counselors must understand problems stemming from the inability to communicate and problems associated with aging. So you've got a twofold issue here. You've got one, okay, this person is simply aging and the changes that go along with becoming older. And then you also have the inability to communicate, which makes that even more difficult. And that's something that the counselor must be aware of. Families. In most cases, elderly hold on to cherished familiar beliefs and family roles. So even by the time it gets to elderly, if you were, which is the least likely to change, it would be the elderly group, or change may not be the best word. Conform to a new norm would probably be the elderly group, which would be the least likely to do that. Challenges, in general, challenges confronting counselors of European Americans. Counselors, there were 3 main points that our textbook points out. Counselors need to understand their own culture as well as their client's culture. It's really important to have a self-awareness as we venture out to try to understand other people's cultures. And, of course, that will affect how we deal with the client. Number 2, counselors and clients may experience communication problems, which can potentially limit counseling effectiveness. So again, it's really important for the counselor to really be self-aware and aware of the client's cultural backgrounds, to understand if there's really a communication problem that's going to make counseling ineffective. And if that's the case, what do we need to do differently, whether it be refer services or change the game plan, but we may need to seek other options. So it's really important for the counselor to be aware of that. And finally, counselors will need to choose counseling strategies that are appropriate for clients and their respective cultures. So it's really important for the counselor to, when trying to come up with interventions, to come up with interventions that are appropriate, respectful to that client's culture. You don't want to offend. You don't want to be ineffective. So again, that's why it's important to really try to not only understand your own culture, but to understand your client's culture as a counselor. I thank you for your time.